folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at Frontline General Spearpoint 1943, the Eastern Front box set, which gives you a German army and a Russian army, and it is a card game for 2 to 4 players. And it's got some dice rolling in it. It's got a lot of math where you're adding up the dice, adding some modifiers to it, and then seeing if you're attacking your enemy and seeing if you're hitting them and how much damage are you doing. It has a whole lot of that kind of thing in it, and you're basically trying to score a certain number of victory points that is basically just over half of your opponent's army total, or you're trying to overrun them, which basically means you've run their deck out of any playable units. So there's a lot going on here, so let's get down to the table and take a look. So in a game of Spearpoint 1943, this is the actual Eastern Front box where it comes with the Russians and the Germans. But basically what you're trying to do is destroy a certain number of points worth of units out of your opponent's deck, while keeping them from destroying us, of course, as much as possible out of your deck. Or you want to reach what is called an overrun condition. So the overrun condition is where you have friendly units in your front line, but your opponent does not for 3 consecutive turns. And if that happens, basically they've run out of units to place in their front line, then you win. The other way in a standard game is to destroy 51 points worth of units out of their deck. So what you do first is you build a deck that is at least 80 points, but no more than 100 points worth of units. And the number of units, number of points that each unit is worth is right up here in the corner of the card. And so you can see that there's a number of different kinds of numbers of points there. You add them up to 80 to 100, somewhere in that window, and then that is your starting deck. That's your force, so to speak. Then you can choose 4 cards from that army to be your starting hand, and then you also draw 3 command cards, and then once both sides have done that, you're ready to begin the game. So the first thing that would happen on a turn is that the 2 players would roll initiative. So the gray is the German player and the red is the Russian player. All right, so we have a 7 and a 3, which means that the German has the initiative and will be able to do their turn first, or rather will be able to act first in the turn. So the first phase of the turn is the commitment phase. That's where the player is going to take the units that are in their hand and place them into their battlefield so that they can do battle with the enemy. All right, a couple of things that we need to make sure of here is that these little directions here, for example, this says commit with a tank. So this tank crew cannot be placed onto the battlefield or committed to the battlefield unless it's inside a tank. Now, once the person with initiative has done that, then the Russian player will do the same thing. And once the Russian player has committed all of his units to the battlefield, then the German player has the initiative to announce who he is targeting with his units. So the tank here will probably go ahead and target the tank that is here, and he denotes that by pointing it at the unit that he is attacking. And then the regular rifle squad here, well, they don't like that machine gun team, so they're going to attack that machine gun team, and they denote that by pointing it at the other squad. And so once the Russian player has denoted which units they're going to attack, these 2 guys are going to go here and this guy will go here, then the Russian player gets to carry out 1 attack. So the Germans elect to attack with their regular rifle squad first into this machine gun team, and when a unit attacks, they can use up to 2 of the weapon profiles that are on their card. So for example here, this German unit would be able to use either their KAR 98s, their MG34s, or their MP40s. But only 2 of them can be used, not all 3. So what we'll do here first is we'll just go down. We're shooting at infantry, so we use this first column here, and then we have to roll an 11 or better in order to cause a hit on that infantry unit. So we roll 2d10, and we rolled a 16. That's 10 plus 6. Now we roll 1d10 and add that number to its effectiveness. So that's 7. And then we look at the defense value of the unit, which is 1. So 7 minus 1 is 6. And then we apply that 6 to its endurance. And then we subtract whatever is left from its endurance. So 6 minus 6 is 0. That means that this veteran machine gun team is destroyed and becomes 5 victory points for the German player. So we'll put that over here. All right, and now it's the Russians' turn to attack. And so we will say that this KV-1B, model 1941, will go ahead and attack the Panther. And just as before, there are 2 weapon profiles, and we're using the second column now because we're attacking a tank, not infantry, and so we're needing 11s and 12s. But because we have a veteran tank crew, we add 1 to our roll, so we only need 10s or 11s on these rolls. So we roll, and that is a 10 exactly, which is what we need. 10 plus the 1 is 11. And so that's a hit. We roll a 10-sided die, and that is 2. So 7 plus 2 is 9. We take that and subtract the defensive value. That's 2 left. So we have done 2 points of damage to this, which knocks this down to an 18. Now, the reason I really wanted at least 1 more of those hits to land is because once you reach a unit's breaking point of endurance, where they are at half or less than half of their endurance level left, then they have to take a damage card. And the damage card is determines what kind of level they're going to take, depending on the kind of unit that they are. So if this is a tank unit, if we had caused the damage on it, it would be immobilized, bonus 2 attack on this unit, and then penalty of 1 defense. So not only would its defense be worse, attacking it would be easier. And what would happen is that would get tucked right underneath there to show that it is immobilized and a damaged unit. But since we didn't score 10 points of damage into it, we only did 8, this does not get flipped over, and we continue as normal. And the rest of the term would basically be pulled out this way. I usually go ahead and write all of these cards so that they are not showing any type of orientation at all. And then the person with initiatives gets to draw cards first. So they can draw 1 command card plus any other 2 cards, and that can be a combination of command cards and unit cards. So they could draw 2 more command cards, or they could draw 2 more unit cards, or they could draw 1 from each of the other one. There is a max hand size limit of 7 unit cards and 5 command cards all together. And if an event is drawn during this step, you must apply its effects immediately. All right, so here, Event 1, Heavy Storm. For the remainder of this game, no aircraft may be committed by either side. Place any aircraft in play under the appropriate reserves deck at the end of this turn. All right, so Heavy Storm is in effect. We put that over here just to denote that. If there were any damage or anything like that that needed to be clicked down, then that would happen at this point. And then any damage that is not complete would basically heal back up to full damage. So if we were, let's say that this was at down to 9 hit points left, which means that he's below half strength, he would heal up to half strength. And same thing with this one. Since this one is above half strength, it actually heals back all the way up to its full strength. And all units do that on the board. And that is how you play Spearpoint 1943. Basic game, once again, is up to 51 points of damage of these numbers right here, or overrunning your opponents. But you also do have these other kinds of I guess you'd call them scenarios, where they have special deck restrictions, where this one you can build your deck to 200 points instead of just 100, and it has special rules for each of the scenarios and that type of thing, different win conditions and as well. So you have to have 100 points or overrun for both of these here. All right, so all of these different scenario cards give you different winning conditions, so there's a lot of replayability here. But that's generally how you play Spearpoint 1943. Not a bad card game. It has a lot of good depth to it. It has a lot of replayability to it with all of the different scenarios that it comes with. I think there's like around 20 scenarios, 15 to 20 scenarios, something like that. So there's a whole lot of scenarios that come into it. And then just as a basic standard game, it's not bad. I didn't know what to expect. When I first looked at the cards and saw the historical photographs as the, I guess, artistic design choice that they went, I was not so on board with it, but it kind of grew on me because it does have a very historical flair to it with all of those different photographs, and it provides a little bit of a grit, a little bit of a, I don't know, just a hardness to it that some other games that are in this genre might lack. So my first impressions were not great, but after I've played it a few times now, I think this is not a bad game, and it's one of those games that I think I might actually return to from time to time. I know my son has already asked to play it again some, so there is that. It has a lot of choices, a lot of strategic choices that you can have as far as what units you use out of your hand. Do I hold this unit back and wait until I knock one of those units off of my opponent's side of the board, or do I go ahead and use that so I can bolster my my attack ability? I like that there is a front line and a rear line, and then there's also airplane units. And this is one of the first games, at least in my experience. Now, again, I don't have a whole lot of experience in war games, but this is one of the first games that integrated airplane combat, and it wasn't that difficult. As a matter of fact, it didn't change hardly at all with what you actually had to do. Just the airplanes were more powerful, basically, especially if you're attacking certain kinds of units. Like some planes were a lot better at attacking bombing tanks, and some were very good at strafing infantry units and stuff like that. So I thought this integrated airplane combat really well, which is something like Memoir 44 tried to do the same thing, and it fell flat for me. So that is a very positive thing on that note. Now, I will say that I thought that the combat system was pretty clunky and not smooth at all, because you had to take this and roll 2d10. Did I get over or under it? Yes, I got over it. Okay, now I had to take this number, roll a die, add that to this, and now take that number and add it to this, subtract it from that, and it just was one step after another, after another, after another, and it got very clunky. And what I thought should have been very fast and simple was a little convoluted, and so that was a kind of a disappointment for me. I thought it was just too complicated, more complicated than it should have been. I also, and this is more of a minor quibble, I also didn't like how damage just kind of magically went away as long as you weren't below a certain threshold. I can see where some thematic quality might be found there, because once your unit gets damaged below a certain amount, there's no healing it back to full damage. But until you get down to that threshold, then, you know, medics and whatnot and engineers can kind of patch things up for you, and you're back up to full fighting strength. I kind of get it. It just seemed kind of cheesy, where, I missed hitting that threshold by 1 point, and now he's back up to full strength. But all in all, I think Frontline General Spearpoint 1943 is a good card game that has a historical World War II theme on it. And the reason I say historical World War II theme is because there are some games out there that have a comical, almost, World War II theme on it, and that's not what this is. This is very gritty, it's very realistic, and I think they're trying to stay true to the historical nature of the combat and all that kind of stuff. So, with that all being said, I'm going to give Spearpoint 1943 1.5 thumbs up. It just missed it because I think the combat is a little clunky, and the damage magically healing away is kind of cheesy in my opinion. But if you can get past that, I think you'll find a gem with Spearpoint 1943. So that is that. See you guys on the flip side.